I was sitting in the clinic's waiting room, flipping through a wrinkled health magazine I didn't care about. The chairs were hard, the air smelled like rubbing alcohol, and a little girl across the room was coughing non-stop into her mother's dress. I just wanted the doctor to call me in so I could get this checkup over with and go home. That's when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Tonya, my daughter-in-law, Edward's wife, my only son's wife. I smiled faintly and answered. "Hello, dear." Her voice came through, sharp and cold like a knife. "We're leaving tomorrow." "Leaving? Where?" I asked, confused. "To Europe," she said flatly. "And before you ask, yes, I already sold the beach house and the truck. We needed the money." My throat went dry. I couldn't speak for a second. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. Like it was nothing. Like it was just some errand she ran. She continued, "The buyer already sent the money. We used part of it to book our flights. Oh, and I cleared out the garage too. Your old furniture? Gone. You can thank me later." And just like that, she ended with, "Anyway, we're leaving first thing in the morning. Bye." She hung up before I could say anything. I stared at the phone, blinking. The doctor's assistant called a name that wasn't mine, but I didn't even hear it properly. I just sat there. My legs were still. My heart was beating, but slow, controlled. 42 years of my life. That's how long I'd been a mother-in-law to her. And just like that, she took everything and tossed me aside like a plastic bag from the market. I should have been crying, screaming, but I didn't. Instead, I slowly leaned back into the hard green plastic chair, took a deep breath, and did something I didn't expect. I smiled, not out of madness, not out of weakness, but because Tonya forgot something. She forgot one thing. And when she asked me on the phone, "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer. I simply laughed. Because what she didn't know was that the house she sold wasn't really mine. At least, not the one she thought was mine. My name is Mama Antonia Okafor. I'm 68 years old. I was married to my late husband Robert for 45 years before he passed away from a heart attack 6 months ago. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning, during breakfast, just like any other day. That morning, Robert had poured me a cup of coffee, 2 sugars, no cream, and made toast the way I liked it, a little burnt on the edges. He kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." He sat across from me, opened the newspaper, and then, just like that, his hand fell over the table. Gone. No warning, no pain, just gone. Since then, my life had slowed into silence. The house felt colder. The walls were too quiet. But Tonya, of all people, started visiting me more, bringing me groceries, driving me to church sometimes, even helped me sort Robert's funeral bills. She was helpful, too helpful, almost like she was watching me. "Mommy, you should see a doctor," she told me one day, weeks after the funeral. "Just for a checkup. We don't want anything happening to you." I thought she cared. I really did. But now it was clear. She was only circling like a hawk waiting for the goat to fall. And I had given her the rope to pull me down. 3 days before Robert died, he handed me a brown envelope. No writing on it, just sealed. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Antonia, when the time is right, when your heart settles, open this. It's important, but only when you feel ready." I had tucked it away in the bottom drawer of my wardrobe. Life got too heavy after that. The funeral, the calls, the family visits. I forgot all about it. But sitting there in that hospital waiting room, something lit up in my mind. That envelope. It was time. The nurse finally called me in. The doctor checked me out and said everything was normal for a woman my age. Eat more greens, less red meat, rest more. I smiled and nodded like a good patient, but I wasn't thinking about red meat. I was thinking about that envelope. I took the bus home. Edward had taken the car after Robert's burial, said it made more sense for him to use it for work since I wasn't going out much. My hand shook slightly as I unlocked the door to my home. The same home Tonya had cleared of furniture without even telling me. The sofa was gone. So was the center rug. But the wardrobe in my bedroom was still there. I walked straight to it. There it was, the envelope, just as I left it. I sat on the bed. Slowly, I broke the seal. Inside were pages, legal papers, certificates, names of companies I'd never heard of, and a letter. My hands trembled. The letter read, "My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I didn't want to leave you alone, so I left you something stronger than gold. I spent the last 15 years investing every kobo, every naira we ever saved. The beach house everyone knows? It was a decoy. The real beach property, along with 4 others in your name, are hidden in a trust. The truck? That was sentimental. But the real value is in the company I built, R&O Holdings. You are its sole owner. Not even Edward knows it exists. Not even Tonya. If anyone tries to take from you, remember this. You are not a helpless widow. You are the queen of this empire. Keep your peace, but never let them win. With all my love, Robert." The letter dropped from my hands onto the bedsheet. I sat there, frozen. Slowly, tears filled my eyes. Not tears of pain this time. Tears of strength, of revelation, of power. I wiped my face. Then I picked up my phone and called Mr. Peterson, our old family lawyer. He had helped Robert draft his will and came to the funeral. A kind man, always wore brown suits and smelled like old books. "Mr. Peterson," I said calmly, "it's Antonia Okafor. I need your help." "Of course, ma'am. Anything?" "I found something. An envelope. From Robert." Silence. "Is it the one he mentioned during our final meetings?" "I believe so." "Then we have much to discuss." I looked around the house again. The bare living room, the missing curtains. Even the dining table was gone. Tonya had sold it all without blinking. They thought they stripped me of everything, but they forgot one thing. I had a man who prepared for war even while we were at peace. The next morning, I wore my wine-colored wrapper, the one Robert always said made me look like a first lady. I put on earrings, tied my headscarf neatly, and looked in the mirror. I didn't see an old woman. I saw a general. At Mr. Peterson's office, I laid out the documents. He took one look and gasped. "Ma'am, this is massive. This isn't just wealth. This is an entire estate." "I don't want the money, Mr. Peterson," I said. "I want the lesson taught." He nodded slowly. "Then we must play the long game." "I've waited 45 years for peace," I said, folding my arms. "I can wait a little longer for justice." Mr. Peterson leaned back in his chair and rubbed his chin slowly, his eyes scanning every line of the documents Robert had prepared. This is very smart," he said. "He used holding companies to mask ownership. These properties are technically owned by R&O Holdings, but on paper, you are the only signatory. No one else can touch them." I nodded. "And the beach house?" He pulled out one of the files. "Ah, that's where things get interesting. The property Tonya sold isn't the real beach house." I narrowed my eyes. "Explain." "There are 2 properties registered with similar addresses, side by side. One is the actual beach estate, your true home, with the oceanfront access, the title history, everything. The other is a small guest bungalow Robert bought years ago and renovated. He registered that one under a different name, tied to a disposable company that doesn't lead back to you." My lips curved into a slow, satisfied smile. Mr. Peterson continued, They sold the bungalow, not the real beach house, which means the sale is legal in terms of title, but fraudulent in intention. They told the buyers it was the main house and that you authorized it. That's deception. So what happens to the people who bought it? I asked. They'll get their money back. We can refund them from the holding account once we reclaim the deed. But your daughter-in-law and your son, they've exposed themselves. Tonya committed fraud. Edward, if he signed anything, helped her do it. I sat back, calm. I don't want to press charges. Not yet. Mr. Peterson gave me a curious look. Why not? Because I want them to believe they've won. I want them to think they've escaped with everything. Let them go on their trip. Let them celebrate. You want them to lower their guard, he said, nodding slowly. Exactly. He tapped a pen against the table. And the truck? Sold too, I replied. Robert's truck. The only thing he didn't hide. That may be harder to retrieve, but if you'd like, I can begin searching. If it was sold through a dealer or a platform, we can trace it. Do it quietly, I said. And if it's gone for good, it's fine. I just want to know who thought it belonged to them. Peterson leaned forward. Antonia, may I say something? Yes. Your calmness. It's remarkable. Most people would be crushed by this. I looked him in the eye. I buried my husband 6 months ago. I can't afford to be weak anymore. He nodded slowly, then placed all the documents into a leather file. I'll begin transferring full control of the holding company to your personal signature. Within 2 weeks, you'll have complete legal power over every property, and I'll initiate the reversal of the bungalow sale quietly. Make sure nothing leads back to me. Of course, he said. And what about the building your son and his wife live in? I paused. Robert's papers had made it clear. The condo where Edward and Tonya lived wasn't really theirs. It was one of the assets Robert had put under R&O Holdings, meaning they were living rent-free in a property I now owned. Leave it for now, I said. They don't know what's coming. Let them enjoy their lies. I left the office feeling lighter, like I had removed a mask I didn't know I'd been wearing. Outside, the sun was warm, the street noisy with buses and traders calling out for customers, but my mind was clear. I went home, stood in the empty living room Tonya had stripped bare, and laughed. Really laughed. They thought I was done, finished. A lonely old woman sitting in an empty house. But I had Robert's legacy. And Robert? He had built me a fortress from the grave. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a warm cup of tea, staring at the files Mr. Peterson gave me. Each document, each stamp, felt like a promise. I remembered the way Robert used to sit right there, reading the newspaper, humming to himself as he buttered his toast. I could almost hear him again, whispering, "It's time you stood up for yourself, my love." The next morning, the neighborhood was alive as usual. I stepped out to water my plants, and my neighbor Aurora from next door waved at me. "Antonia, dear," she called. "Is it true that your children have left for Europe?" I smiled politely. "Yes, they left yesterday." She shook her head. "And they left you alone? Just like that?" I shrugged. "They said they had business there." Aurora looked at me, her eyes soft with pity. "If you need anything, please ask. My niece can help you clean, or I can bring soup." I placed the watering can down and said, "Thank you, but I'm okay." She sighed and walked away. They all saw me as helpless now, alone, struggling. Good. Let them. Let the world think I was weak. Let Tonya think she had won. She would come back one day, maybe weeks or months from now, and she would expect to find a broken woman. But what she would find would be very different. Later that afternoon, I got a message from Mr. Peterson. He had filed the first batch of title reversals and was working on retrieving the truck. He also reminded me that Edward had a growing list of debts under his name, and possibly some that Tonya didn't know about yet. I told him to monitor it all, but not to act yet. The next morning, I received a call. I picked it up slowly. Hello? It was Tonya. Hi, Mama. Her voice was bright, sweet, as if nothing had happened. We just landed in Amsterdam. The flight was smooth. I said softly. That's nice, she continued. Oh, and I just wanted to let you know that we transferred 30% of the house sale money to your account. I raised my eyebrow. 30%? Yes. We didn't want to leave you with nothing, of course. We thought that was fair. Edward and I will use the rest for the business setup here. I smiled. My share of my house. How kind of you. She laughed nervously. Well, it's just temporary. When we come back, we'll help you find a small place. Something manageable. I see. Anyway, she added, enjoy the money. It should help for a few months. I didn't say anything. She filled the silence with another cheerful line. We love you, Mama. Then she hung up. I placed the phone down and laughed again. 30%. Of a house that wasn't even the real house. They had sold the guest bungalow Robert used for his fishing gear and claimed it was the beach house. And they split the money as if they were doing me a favor. But they didn't know. They hadn't even scratched the surface. I walked slowly to the back room and opened the metal trunk Robert used to keep his old fishing clothes. His scent still lingered there, Old Spice and salt water. I pulled out one of his old flannel shirts and hugged it tight. Thank you, I whispered. You were always 10 steps ahead. That evening, I took a notebook and started making plans. Serious plans. Because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about restoring order, and order would come in silence. And when the storm finally arrived, it would come wearing my face. Not angry. Not loud, just calm and unstoppable. I sat at the table late into the night, the same table where Robert used to eat his mangoes and tell jokes that never made me laugh until minutes later. My notebook lay open, and on it were 3 simple words. Let it burn. I wasn't talking about fire. I was talking about silence, about patience. I was going to let Tonya and Edward believe they were flying high, floating in the clouds with their so-called investment, until the truth hit them like a wall. And when that wall came crashing down, they'd realize they had built their dreams on sand. The next morning, Mr. Peterson called. Mrs. Okafor, he said, sounding more alert than usual. I have good news. I'm listening. The fraudulent beach house sale? It's been voided. I spoke with the couple who bought it. Turns out they were tricked too. They were told you were terminally ill and needed money fast. I laughed bitterly. Of course Tonya told them that. She's always had a gift for stories. They agreed to return the property. In exchange, we'll return the money quietly from one of the company's dormant accounts. That way there's no noise. You won't be named. Perfect, I said. And the real house? Still untouched. Still yours. And now fully under your personal name through the trust. Nobody can touch it again. Not without your fingerprint. I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. One more thing, he said, his voice lowering. The apartment building where your son and daughter-in-law used to live, you're officially in control now. We updated the ownership structure. You are now the direct landlord. I smiled, picturing Tonya walking through the front door someday soon, surprised to find her name erased from everything. And Robert's truck? I asked. We traced it to a man in Benin City. He bought it last month. He's a decent man. My cousin, actually. I explained the situation. He agreed to return it for a small refund. It'll be brought to your house this weekend. I blinked. Really? Yes. Your husband's truck will be back under your tree by Sunday." For the first time in months, I felt something deep in my chest move. Not pain, not sadness. Peace. "Mr. Peterson," I said softly, "you've done more for me than I can say." "I'm just following your husband's instructions," he replied. That man planned everything like chess. When I hung up the phone, I sat in silence for a long while. The house was still mostly empty. Tonya had sold or taken almost everything, but that didn't matter anymore. The bones of this house were strong, just like me. The next few days passed quietly. I stayed in my house, watered my plants, greeted the neighbors. Nobody knew anything had changed. They still looked at me like a poor widow with nothing but memories. Let them think that. I wore old wrappers, walked to the market like before, bought tomatoes, plantain, and beans with small notes from my purse. I even accepted a ride home from Sister Chinelo like I used to, just to keep the illusion going. But at night I was a different woman. I was counting rent payments, reviewing legal documents, managing tenants, and approving quiet transfers from hidden accounts. I wasn't just Antonia Okafor anymore. I was the shadow owner of everything my children thought they had stolen, and I loved it. One afternoon, as I returned from the market, Aurora came rushing to my gate, panting. "Antonia! Antonia! Have you heard?" I wiped sweat from my forehead and leaned on the gate. "Heard what?" "About Edward." "What happened?" She looked around as if the breeze could hear us. "He's in trouble. Big trouble. My cousin works at Unity Bank. She said Edward used the apartment you gave them as collateral for multiple loans." I didn't blink. "Loans?" "Yes. But here's the twist. The apartment is not in his name. The bank just found out. They've started calling lawyers." My lips twitched. "Poor Angela. Tonya," Aurora said quickly. "She's still in Europe, isn't she?" "Yes. Last I heard, she was still there." Aurora shook her head. "I don't know what's happening with young people these days. Greedy and reckless, always chasing big money." I nodded slowly. "The wind is finally blowing. We'll soon see the bottom of the calabash." That evening, I received another message from Mr. Peterson. "Edward is in serious debt. We've tracked 5 loans he took out using forged ownership claims. One of them is from a private lender with dangerous ties. Edward may not be safe if he returns. Tonya is not listed on the paperwork, but her name is beginning to show up as a guarantor. I recommend preparing an eviction notice." I read the message twice. Then I wrote back, "Prepare it, but don't send it until I say so." And that night, I waited. 3 days later, Aurora came to my door again. This time, her voice was even louder. "Antonia, I told you she'd come back." I stepped outside. "Who?" "Your daughter-in-law. She returned last night. I saw her dragging 2 suitcases. Alone. No Edward. She looked like a ghost. No makeup. No wig. She even asked the security man to open the gate because her keys weren't working." My heart thudded. Tonya was back. Alone. Broke. And about to walk straight into the storm she created. That afternoon, I got a call. My phone vibrated on the table and I picked it up without saying a word. "Mom." It was Tonya's voice. Tired. Small. "Good afternoon," I said, sipping tea. "Mom, I need to talk to you. Urgently." "What is it?" "I received a letter." "A letter?" "Yes. An eviction letter from some company called R&O Holdings. It says I have 30 days to vacate my apartment. Is this a scam?" I smiled. "R&O Holdings?" "Yes. Do you know anything about it?" I paused. Then I said softly, "No, I don't think I've heard of it." "Mom, please," she begged. "I don't understand what's happening." "Edward, he's gone. He left me in Europe. He ran off with a girl he met in Paris. And now this? I don't have money. I don't even have a job." I said nothing. Tonya sniffled. "Mom, can I come see you?" Please, I don't have anyone else. She was breaking. Perfect. Yes, I replied. Come over. An hour later, she arrived. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. No lipstick, no lashes, just her. A girl who had thought she had won, now holding her own defeat in a torn handbag. Come in, I said calmly. She stepped inside. The place was still quiet. The walls were still bare. She looked around and whispered, I'm sorry. Sit, I said, pointing to the kitchen stool. I made tea, the same way Robert used to. 2 sugars, no cream. She held the cup with both hands like it was the only warm thing in her life. Mom, she said quietly, I don't know what to do. Edward's gone. The money's gone. The bank is after me. And now this letter. She looked up at me with glassy eyes. Can I stay here? Just for a while. Just until I find my feet. I stared at her. This same woman who had sold my things. Taken my home. Laughed with Edward while I sat in silence. Now asking me for shelter? But I had been ready for this moment. I gave her the softest smile I could manage. Of course, I said. This will always be your home. And just like that, she broke down in tears. Tears of relief, tears of shame, tears of someone who thought they were untouchable until life touched them back. I reached out and held her hand, gently, but in my heart, I said the words Robert had once said to me. It's time you stood up for yourself. Only this time, it was her turn to learn what standing really meant. Tonya moved into the house that same day. She came with 2 worn suitcases, a half-empty bag of cosmetics, and a face that looked like it hadn't seen peace in weeks. I watched her carry those bags into the room she used to complain was too small and too dark years ago. Now, she didn't even ask if she could have the master bedroom. She knew better. She barely spoke during dinner. I made yam porridge and brought out 2 spoons. She barely touched hers. You should eat, I said quietly. I'm not really hungry, she whispered. But her eyes were red and sunken, like someone who hadn't slept or eaten in days. She looked older and smaller, like all the pride she once carried had melted away in the European rain. That night, I stayed in the sitting room long after she'd gone to bed. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't listen to music. I just sat, holding Robert's old wristwatch in my hand. The one that ticked so quietly you could only hear it if everything else was silent. This house was different now. Tonya was inside it again, but not as the queen she once believed herself to be. Now, she was a guest, a humbled one. The next morning, I heard her in the kitchen. She was trying to boil water but didn't even know how to light the gas properly. I walked in and found her waving a matchstick helplessly. Oh, good morning, Mom, she said, stepping aside. I was just trying to make tea. I took the matchbox and lit the burner with one strike. She smiled awkwardly. Everything's different now, she said. We sat and sipped tea in silence. She kept glancing at me as if she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Then finally, she spoke. Mom, I found something while unpacking, in Edward's luggage. I think it's for you. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small brown envelope. My heart stopped. It had my name on it, written in Robert's handwriting. Neat, gentle, familiar. I took the envelope without a word and opened it slowly. Inside was a short letter and a small silver key. The letter read, Antonia, if you are reading this after opening the main envelope, then it means our daughter-in-law has come back home. This key opens safe deposit box number 247 at the main branch of Central Bank. Inside is something that may help you help her, but only if she has truly learned. Use it wisely. With love, Robert. Tonya leaned closer. What does it mean? I looked up slowly. It's from your father-in-law. Is it money? I shook my head. I don't know. He left something in a bank vault, a safety deposit box. Her eyes widened slightly. Do you think it could help? Maybe, I said, but we don't even know what's inside. Can we go? Please? I just need something to hold on to right now. I looked at her. Really, looked at her. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was tired, empty, and desperate to feel hope again. I nodded. We'll go tomorrow. That night she made dinner. It was burnt rice and undercooked fish, but I ate it anyway, because I knew the effort it took her to even try. She told me more about Europe, about how Edward lied to her from the very beginning. There was no business deal, she said, shaking her head. Nothing. He just wanted to leave the country and start over with that girl he met online, a waitress, 25 years old, from Paris. I didn't say anything. She went on. He took the last of the money. I thought we were checking into a hotel. He gave me a fake room key and left me standing in the lobby. Just walked out of the back door. Never came back. Still, I said nothing. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Mom, I don't know how I got here. I reached across the table and gently touched her hand. You trusted the wrong person, I said quietly. But that's not the end of your story. The next morning, we dressed simply and headed to the central bank downtown. We took a kiki and walked the rest of the way. The air was hot and the sun beat down on our heads, but Tanya didn't complain once. Inside the bank, we spoke with the front desk, showed ID, and were escorted to the vaults. The manager opened box number 247. Inside was a small chest, old, wooden, and heavy. Tanya held her breath as I opened it. It was full of jewelry, gold bracelets, diamond earrings, pearl necklaces. Some I recognized as family heirlooms, others I had never seen before. Tanya gasped. Mom, this is... I nodded slowly. It's worth a lot. She looked at me. We could sell it, pay off some of the debts. I didn't answer right away, because I knew what she meant. She wanted to use Robert's inheritance, his secret treasure, to clean the mess Edward left behind. But part of me still wasn't sure she had learned her full lesson. Are you sure? I asked her. Once we sell these, we can't get them back. She looked down at the glittering gems. I know. And they belong to your father-in-law. These were his memories. I know, she said again, quieter this time. We left the bank with the jewelry carefully sealed in a secure envelope. We didn't talk much on the ride home. Later that evening, she laid everything out on the table. She had a notepad and a pen. She began listing the debts one by one. I spoke to a financial advisor, she said. A free one, at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have collateral, like the ones where Edward used our apartment address. Even though it's not ours, the banks are still knocking. I said, watching her. I think I can raise close to $200 million if we sell all the major pieces. That should be enough to pay the worst ones. But I'll need help finding buyers. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, because what I saw was more important than what I heard. I saw someone willing to work, willing to face consequences, willing to change. And that was all I needed. That night, after she went to sleep, I called Mr. Peterson. She's ready, I told him. He didn't even ask who I meant. What do you want to do? He asked. Start the process. Separate her name from Edward's. Legally. Financially. Protect her. I can do that, he said. But it will cost about $50 million for the best lawyers. Don't worry, I replied. We already have the money. From the jewelry? No, I said calmly. That's just what she sees. What do you mean? I said softly, My daughter-in-law still doesn't know I'm the woman behind Arnaud Holdings. There was silence on the line. Then Mr. Peterson laughed quietly. Understood, he said. I'll begin immediately. I hung up the phone, walked to my room, closed the door, and whispered, Your daughter-in-law has come home, Robert, but now it's my turn to finish what you started. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sun hadn't fully climbed over the fence yet, and the air still felt soft and quiet. I could hear the birds singing. Somewhere down the street, a generator grumbled to life. I sat at the edge of my bed and listened. I wasn't listening to the sounds outside. I was listening to the silence inside me. It was calm. The kind of calm you feel when you've finally taken back control, when you're no longer running from anything or begging anyone. I looked at Robert's old watch on my dresser. It still ticked. Then I got up and walked out to the living room. Tonya was already awake. She was sitting at the table, fully dressed, her hair tied back. A pile of papers spread out in front of her. She looked tired but focused. She had 2 cups of tea on the table. She had made one for me. I paused at the doorway. She looked up quickly. Good morning, Mom. Morning. I made tea. Hope it's not too strong. I walked over and sat down slowly, took the cup. It was just right. She smiled faintly, then looked back down in the papers. I've made a full list of Edward's debts. There are 9 in total. 4 from banks, 5 from private lenders. I sipped my tea. She continued. The bank ones are the most dangerous. They already sent letters. They're trying to claim the apartment. Which you don't own, I reminded her. I know. But Edward forged the documents, signed my name, claimed we had joint ownership. I stared at her. You didn't know? She shook her head slowly. No. I gave him some of my documents back when we opened our joint account. I trusted him. I didn't say anything. What could I say? This was the same woman who had once told me, Edward knows best, Mom. He handles everything. You wouldn't understand. Now, here she was, buried in debt, because she had refused to understand. She sighed. The other debts, those private ones, are dangerous too. One of the lenders came to the apartment before I left for Europe. He shouted, said he'd burn the place down if he wasn't paid. Edward said he handled it, but he didn't. What's your plan? I asked. She looked at me, tired. I'll sell the jewelry. At least the big pieces. I've already spoken to someone in Lagos who can connect me to a buyer. I know it's not enough to fix everything, but I can try. I looked at her long and hard. She was trying. She was no longer blaming the world or playing the victim. She was facing it. And that mattered more than anything. I have something to tell you, I said gently. She looked up, surprised. I've already started the process of separating your name from Edward's debts. Her mouth fell open slightly. You what? I hired lawyers, the best ones. They're working with the banks. We're building a case to prove that you were deceived, that you didn't authorize the loans. But how? That must be expensive. It is, I said. She blinked. Mom, how are you even affording... I told you, didn't I? Your father-in-law planned ahead. More than you know. She sat back in her chair, speechless. And what's more, I continued, I'm not doing this because I have to. I'm doing it because I believe you're finally learning. You've changed. You're not the same person who left this house and sold my things without asking. Tonya's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I forgive you, I said softly. That broke her. She burst into quiet sobs, covering her face with both hands. I'm so sorry, Mama, she cried. I was stupid. I thought I was smart. I thought I knew everything. I thought... I thought you were just old and weak and slow. I placed my hand over hers. You thought wrong, I said kindly. I hurt you, she whispered. I sold your memories. I let Edward treat you like nothing. And now you're here, I said, earning every moment back. She nodded, tears still running down her cheeks. Later that afternoon, she left with the jewelry to meet the buyer in Lagos. She went alone. I wanted her to. She needed to fight some battles on her own now. She returned that night, exhausted. But she brought a brown envelope. I sold most of it, she said. I couldn't let it go for less than it was worth. I negotiated. I stood firm. How much? $180 million, she said quietly. It's not everything we need, but it's enough to keep the worst wolves away. I paid 2 banks immediately. The others gave me more time. You did well, I said. I want to start working, she added. Something real. I saw a posting for a receptionist role in a clinic nearby. I'll apply tomorrow. I smiled. She was rebuilding, brick by brick. That night, after she went to bed, I sat alone in the living room again. But this time, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't even thinking about Robert. I was thinking about Grace. How sometimes people only see the value of home when they're out in the cold. And sometimes the best way to teach someone a lesson is not with punishment, but with quiet power, the kind that lets them fall and then helps them stand. But just as I was about to go to bed, my phone buzzed. It was Mr. Peterson. I answered quickly. Good evening, Mrs. Okafor. I wanted to let you know. We found Edward. I sat up. Where? Paris. Just like she said. But here's the twist. He's trying to get permanent residency by marrying that girl. But she's undocumented. So the marriage itself is being investigated. I didn't say anything. I just listened. We also found proof, he added. Solid proof that he forged Tonia's signature. Court admissible evidence. Your daughter-in-law can be completely cleared. I felt a wave of relief, but I didn't let it show. Start the paperwork, I said. Clear her name completely. Should we tell her? Not yet, I said. Let it be finished first. I don't want to give her false hope. Understood. I ended the call and looked at the closed door to her room. She had no idea. No idea that her name was about to be wiped clean. No idea that the woman she once called old-fashioned and too soft was now quietly saving her life, one paper at a time. And maybe that's how it should be, for now. Because the day she learns the full truth, the day she discovers who really owned the beach house, the apartment, and everything else, that day will come. But not yet. First, I want her to keep walking. Keep struggling, keep proving, because forgiveness is free. But trust must be earned. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of movement in the kitchen. Pots clanging, water running. I listened from my room for a few seconds. It wasn't noise. It was energy. It was the sound of someone trying. I tied my wrapper and walked out. Tonia was by the sink, scrubbing a pot like it owed her money. Good morning, I said. She jumped a little and looked up. Oh, good morning, Mama. You're up early. I couldn't sleep, she said, brushing sweat from her forehead. I kept thinking about the clinic job. I want to apply today. I nodded. You'll need to print your CV. I'll go to the business center after breakfast, she said quickly. There's still N$1,500 left from the transport money yesterday. I can manage. I smiled faintly. So you now know how to manage small money? She laughed softly, looking a bit embarrassed. Mama, I'm learning. I promise I'm learning. She was. That much was clear. No makeup, no long fake lashes, no fake accent when she talked to me. Just the real version of the woman who once walked past me like I was invisible. And now? She greeted me every morning like her life depended on it. She made yam and eggs that day, and I ate slowly, watching her. She even cleared the plates without being asked. Around 10 a.m., she changed into a plain black gown, combed her hair neatly, and headed out with her file tucked under her arm. Before she left, she paused at the doorway. "I don't know if they'll hire me," she said, "but I'll try." "That's all you need to do," I said. "Try." She smiled and walked out. I watched her go from the window. There was something new in her walk. Not pride, not arrogance, just quiet strength. Like a woman who had been through fire and come out with skin still healing. As soon as she was out of sight, I picked up the phone. Mr. Peterson answered on the second ring. "She's out. I think now is the time." "You're sure?" "Yes," I said. "Tell the lawyers to submit everything. Let's clear her name." "Consider it done." "And Peterson?" "Yes." "Thank you." He chuckled. "Robert would be proud." I hung up. I sat down and stared at the quiet kitchen, still smelling of fried eggs and onions. I closed my eyes and whispered, "You were right, Robert. She just needed to lose everything first." Later that afternoon, Tonya came back home, a bit sweaty but smiling. "They offered me a trial," she said, dropping her bag. 2 weeks. If I do well, they'll make it permanent." "That's good," I said. "Very good." "It doesn't pay much," she added. "But it's a start." "A small start is still a start." She smiled again, and this time her smile wasn't forced. It was real. A little shy, a little unsure, but honest. She started the clinic job the next day. Night shifts. She'd leave by 6 p.m. and return around 6:30 in the morning, tired, with sore feet. Sometimes with a slight cough from the hospital air, but she never complained. She did the laundry, cooked when she could, cleaned her old bedroom, and every evening before she left, she'd ask, "Mama, do you need anything before I go?" And every morning, I'd leave warm food on the table for when she got back. It became a quiet rhythm. Then, after 1 week, Mr. Peterson called. "It's done. All of it." The court accepted the forged documents as evidence. The banks dropped her name from every loan. She's now free of Edward's debt. I felt my whole body exhale. "Thank you," I said. "There's more," he added. "We tracked Edward's location. He was arrested by immigration officers in Paris. Fake marriage. Fraud papers. He'll likely be deported. France doesn't joke with those things." I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity either. I just felt justice. "And now?" I asked. "Now," Mr. Peterson said, "your daughter-in-law is a free woman." I hung up the call. I sat in silence, and I waited. 2 days passed. Then one evening, Tonya came back from her shift, dropped her bag, and walked straight to the kitchen where I was peeling onions. "Mama," she said softly. "Yes?" "I got a call today." I didn't look up. "From who?" "The same bank that's been chasing me, the one that sent letters about the apartment. They said, I don't know anything anymore." I stayed quiet. "They said someone submitted legal evidence, that I had been framed, that everything's been cleared." I slowly sliced an onion in half. She took a shaky breath. "Was it you?" I finally looked up. Her eyes were watery again. "Was it you, Mama? Did you do it?" I wiped my hands and turned to face her. "I did what a mother should do," I said. She walked over slowly like her legs could barely hold her weight. And then she knelt down in front of me. She didn't cry loud. She just shook. "Mama, I don't deserve your kindness," she whispered. "Not after everything. Not after the way I treated you." "You're right," I said softly. She looked up in shock. "You didn't deserve it," I said again, kneeling beside her. "But that's what makes it real. Love doesn't wait for people to be perfect. It saves them when they're not." She broke completely. We sat there on the kitchen floor, holding each other like a mother and daughter who finally remembered what it meant to forgive. After a while, I helped her up. "Sit," I said. "Let me finish dinner." She sat quietly, watching me, tears still drying on her cheeks. Then she spoke again, quietly. "There's something I need to know, Mama." I kept chopping vegetables. She leaned forward. "The company that sent the eviction letter, R&O Holdings, that's Robert's company, isn't it?" I didn't answer. She stared at me. "Was it all you?" she whispered. "All this time?" I finally looked up, and I gave her the faintest smile. "Eat your food," I said. She nodded, but her eyes filled again. That night, I heard her crying softly in her room, not out of pain, not even guilt, but from the weight of knowing she had been saved by the same person she once threw away. And I, sitting in the living room with Robert's old watch ticking in my hand, whispered back to the night, "She knows now, Robert. She knows." The next morning, I found Tonya already awake. She was sitting on the veranda with her knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them, staring into the distance like she was waiting for the sky to say something. I walked outside quietly, holding a cup of tea for her. She turned as I approached. "Good morning, Mama." I handed her the cup. "You didn't sleep?" She took it with both hands. "Not really. My heart is too full." I sat beside her. The sun was still rising, casting a soft golden light over the compound. The air smelled like morning dew and peace. "I kept thinking about everything," she said. "How I left, how I lied, how I looked you in the face, and still betrayed you." She stared into her cup. "I used to think you were weak, Mama. I really did. I thought you were just a quiet old woman with no fight left. But now I see it." I turned to her gently. "See what?" She looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "You were never weak. You were just waiting. You let me fall. You let me carry my own punishment. And somehow, you still loved me through it." I didn't say anything. Sometimes, silence was more powerful than words. Tonya sniffled and wiped her eyes. "I don't deserve you, but I want to earn back your trust, even if it takes years." I placed my hand over hers. "Then start by living like someone who understands the value of people, not just money." She nodded. "I will." That morning, something changed between us, not with words, but with energy, respect, mutual understanding. Later that day, she dressed for work and carried her small black handbag like it was a briefcase full of gold. Before she left, she turned back at the door. "Mama, I want to do something." I looked up from the garden stool where I was picking ugu leaves. "What is it?" "When I get my first real salary, I want to replace something I took. Something I sold." "You don't have to." "I do," she interrupted gently. "It's not just about money. It's about restoration. It's about honor." I paused, then nodded. "All right." She smiled, then walked out the door. I watched her go again. But this time, I wasn't watching with suspicion. I was watching with pride. That afternoon, I sat with Mr. Peterson in his office. He was sorting through some final papers related to the case. "She's clean now," he said. "No more debts. No more connections to Edward's mess. Legally, she's a free woman." I nodded. He leaned back. "You still haven't told her about the beach house, have you?" "No." "Why?" "Because she's not ready to own that truth," I said. "Not until she understands that money doesn't make you powerful. Character does." He smiled. "You're very wise, Mrs. Okafor." "No," I said. "I've just been through too much not to learn something." As we finished up, he handed me one final document. "What's this?" "A personal deed transfer. Robert added it quietly before his passing. It gives you sole ownership of the real beach house, not just as trustee, but as named owner on all public records. I stared at the paper. My name was printed boldly at the top. Antonia Okafor, legal owner. It felt strange to see. I had always shared everything with Robert. Now I stood alone, strong, but still alone. I returned home that evening and found Tonya asleep on the couch, her shoes still on, her ID badge hanging from her neck. She looked peaceful, and tired, and changed. She stirred when I walked in. "Oh, Mama, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sleep off. It's all right. I brought groceries," she said quickly. "I used some of the small allowance from the clinic, just rice, oil, and tomatoes." I smiled. "Thank you." She sat up, brushing her hair behind her ears. "There's something else," she added. "I got a call from Edward's brother." I froze. What did he want? "He said Edward is begging me not to press charges. He heard about the court case. He says Edward is in a detention center. No money, no lawyer, just broken." I didn't respond. Tonya looked at me carefully. "Mama, should I forgive him?" The question sat in the air like smoke. I leaned back in the chair and thought for a long moment. Then I said quietly, "Forgiveness isn't about setting him free. It's about setting yourself free." She nodded. "So, I should let it go?" I looked into her eyes. "Do you feel lighter when you think of him? Or do you feel like something's still tied to your back?" She swallowed hard. "I feel tied, like I'm still carrying the mess." "Then forgive him. And drop the rope." She sat back, breathing slowly. "Okay," she said. "I'll forgive him. Not for him, but for me." "Good," I said. "Then let the lawyers handle the rest." Tonya stood and walked to her room, but just before she opened the door, she turned around. "Mama?" "Yes?" "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated. "That beach house, the one I sold. Why haven't the new owners moved in? I passed the road last week. It still looks the same." I looked at her for a moment. Then I smiled. "I suppose they figured out they bought the wrong house." She squinted. "What do you mean?" I stood slowly, brushing my wrapper. "I mean," I said, walking toward my room, "you didn't sell what you thought you sold?" She stared after me, confused. And maybe just a little bit suspicious. But I didn't explain. Not yet. Because the final piece of the lesson hadn't arrived. But it was coming. Oh, it was coming soon. And when it did, she would understand the full weight of everything she had touched, everything she had lost, and everything I had quietly restored. Tonya stood in the hallway for a long time after I walked into my room. I didn't turn back. I didn't say anything else. I just closed the door behind me and let the silence answer her question. Because sometimes, silence is the best teacher. Later that night, I heard her pacing in her room. Then I heard her open her drawer, shuffle some papers. At one point, I heard her whispering to herself. She was putting things together. Good. Let her wonder. Let her trace the cracks. Let her start to see the full picture. The next morning, she didn't come out for breakfast. I knocked gently. "Tonya?" "I'm fine," she said quietly. "Just tired." I left a plate of yam and eggs on a tray and went back to my seat. I didn't push. An hour later, she came out slowly. Her eyes were puffy, but not from sadness, from thinking, from realizing. She sat down without a word and began to eat. Then, finally, she looked up. "Mama." "Yes?" "Was that house I sold not the real beach house?" I took a sip of tea. "What makes you say that?" I checked the documents again. The sale I made. The address doesn't match the real title deed I saw years ago. I said nothing. Tonya leaned forward. "And the lawyer who signed off on it, He wasn't one of Robert's contacts, was he? I kept drinking my tea. Her hands trembled slightly. So it was all a decoy, a setup. I met her eyes, calm, still. I told you. You forgot one thing. She dropped her spoon. You let me sell the wrong house on purpose? No, I said softly. You sold the wrong house on your own. I simply didn't stop you. She stared at me like the floor beneath her had disappeared. All this time, she whispered. You knew? I nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes again. Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you say something? Because if I had stopped you, I said quietly, you would have never learned what it meant to lose something you never deserved to take. She covered her mouth with her hands, shaking her head slowly. I continued, you thought you were clever. You thought I was old and helpless. But your father-in-law, he knew this day would come. He prepared for it, and I trusted his plan. She began to cry silently. I was trying to be smart, she said through tears. I wanted to live better. I didn't know I was destroying the very person who would save me. I walked over and stood behind her. I placed a hand on her shoulder. You weren't the only one fooled by comfort, I said. But now, you see? She nodded slowly. I do. I see everything now. That afternoon, I handed her an envelope. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was the real title to the beach house, with her name written at the bottom. She looked up at me, stunned. I don't understand. You're ready now, I said. This house will be yours. But not today, not tomorrow. You'll earn it. You'll work for it. You'll manage it like a business, like your father-in-law did. Her lips trembled. But, Mama, I'm not giving it to you as a gift, I said. I'm trusting you with a legacy. She clutched the paper to her chest and broke down again. Mama, I'll never fail you again, she cried. You already failed, I said gently. Now it's time to rebuild. And that evening, for the first time, she sat with me and asked, teach me. So I did. I opened Robert's old books, showed her the ledgers, taught her how to read property deeds, how to track tenants, how to balance accounts. She took notes like a student in school. For the next few weeks, she studied every day after her shifts. She stopped using her little money to buy makeup or fancy perfume. She started saving, volunteering on weekends at the women's center down the street. She even joined me at church again. Slowly, she became someone new. Then one Sunday morning, she stepped out of her room wearing a soft blue dress, her hair packed neatly, her face calm. Mama, I'm ready. For what? I asked. To go and see it, she said. I nodded. We took a quiet trip to the coast, just the two of us. When we arrived at the real beach house, she stood there frozen, her eyes wide. It's more beautiful than I remembered, she whispered. The sun hit the water just right. The house stood proud, untouched. The porch still had Robert's old rocking chair. The wind carried the smell of salt and memory. She walked up the steps slowly like she didn't believe it was real. And then she turned to me, tears falling down her cheeks. This time, she said, I'll protect it. I know, I replied. Because now, you understand it. We sat together on the porch that evening, watching the waves. And for the first time in a long, long time, my heart felt light. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had changed. Not with money, not with punishment, but with truth. And truth is the one thing you can't sell. The next morning, Tonya woke up before I did. She was already sweeping the sand off the front steps of the beach house when I opened the curtains. Her hands moved slowly but with care, like she was touching something sacred. Her hair was tied in a simple scarf, and she wore a plain wrapper, No jewelry, no long nails, no designer bag. Just peace. I watched her from inside, not saying a word. She was no longer the same woman who once said, "We're leaving tomorrow. The house is sold." No, that woman was gone. After breakfast, she joined me on the porch. The sea breeze blew gently, and the waves sounded like an old lullaby. She sat quietly beside me, then spoke. "Mama, I had a dream last night." "I saw Daddy Robert," she said. "He was standing by the ocean, wearing white, smiling. He said, 'You've come home.'" I smiled softly. He was right. Tonya wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "I think I finally understand why he did all this. Why he hid everything. Why he gave it all to you first. He knew people change when money shows up," I said. "He didn't want to protect just the property. He wanted to protect the people." She nodded. "And he trusted you to carry it all." I didn't answer, because she already knew. We stayed at the beach house for 3 more days. During the day, she helped the caretaker repaint one of the guest rooms. In the evenings, we cooked together and told stories. Stories from when Edward was still a boy. Stories of when Robert bought this land and built the house brick by brick. By the 3rd day, she stood by the ocean and whispered, "This doesn't belong to me yet." I turned to her. She added, "Not until I've built something on my own. Not until I've earned the right to carry this name." I walked toward her slowly. "You're not wrong," I said. "But you're no longer running from the truth. That's the first step." "I want to start something, Mama," she said. "A small foundation. For widows. For women like me who didn't know their worth until it was almost too late." My heart warmed. "Then start small. Start with one person." She nodded. "I already have. Her name is Ruth. She sweeps at the clinic. I gave her my old sandals and taught her how to use a phone. She cried. Said no one had ever helped her without wanting something back." I smiled. "You're already doing it, my daughter." She smiled too. It was the first time she called me Mama with her full chest, with no hidden bitterness or pride. Just love. That evening, we packed up and returned to the city. The house would wait for her. The legacy would wait. But her work, her real work, had just begun. The following week, Tonya went to church and gave a small testimony. She didn't mention money or property. She talked about forgiveness, grace, and starting over. People clapped. Some cried, some whispered. But I knew she wasn't doing it for applause. She was doing it because she was finally free. And freedom is loudest when it's quiet. Now here is chapter 10, the final chapter in the story. A quiet, powerful, full-circle conclusion, still in your style. Simple, cinematic, and emotional. A few weeks passed. The sun started rising earlier. Rain came less often. Life slowly settled into something that felt like rhythm again. Tonya got her first full paycheck from the clinic. It wasn't much, but the way she held that envelope, you'd think it was gold. She handed it to me with both hands. "Mama, this is yours." I looked at her, surprised. "What for?" "For the chair," she said. "What chair?" She pointed to the old wooden chair in the corner of the parlor. "The one I sold. The one Robert used to sit in every Sunday." I smiled. "You remember that chair?" "I remember everything now," she said. I didn't take the money. Instead, I placed my hand over hers and pushed it back. "Use it," I said. "Build something. Give someone hope." She nodded. That evening, she used the money to buy cleaning supplies and food for 2 elderly women who lived down the street. She didn't take pictures. She didn't post it online. She just knocked on their door and helped them clean their rooms. And that night, when she returned, she looked 10 years lighter. I was sitting on the porch when she joined me. We watched the moon rise. We didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "Mama, If you had told me everything from the beginning, I wouldn't have listened. I know. If you had fought me when I took the house, I would have pushed back harder. I know. But you didn't, she whispered. You let me walk into my own fire. I nodded slowly. Because only fire can burn out certain things. She looked at me. Pride, I added. Greed. Foolishness. She smiled. Mama. Yes. I want to take over managing the tenants in the apartment building, not for ownership, just for learning. I want to build something honest. I turned to her. Then go ahead, I said. But remember, being in charge is not about power. It's about responsibility. I understand. She stood and stretched her arms. I'll wake early tomorrow. Start drafting some reports. Make sure you include the broken light in flat 3, I said. They've been calling. She grinned. Already wrote it down. I smiled. Good. She started walking inside, then paused, turned back, and looked at me. Thank you, Mama, she said, for everything, for the silence, for the waiting, for not giving up on me. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, thank your father-in-law too. He built the safety net. I just held it open. She nodded. Then she whispered, you really are the strongest woman I've ever known, and quietly walked away. I looked up at the night sky. The stars were scattered like diamonds, just like the ones in Robert's hidden box. Except these couldn't be sold. These ones were mine, and somewhere up there, I imagined him smiling. You were right, my love, I whispered. She had to fall to see clearly, but she's standing now. I closed my eyes, and finally, I rested.